It's not big, and if they're extending out into the parking lot, that's even more on the road. So just feedback that I've heard from the residents, so.
Good. All right.
We can consult DPW on that.
Okay.
And I can follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Moore.
Make a motion to open the floor. We believe we have someone that wants to speak tonight on that.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. If you could state your name and address for the
Address.
record.
Yep, Alex Fallish, 2311 Deer Trail. I'm one of the owners of Noble Root Brewing Company. Totally understand the issue regarding parking. This was actually an issue that I believe was in front of a different committee about 4 years ago. I believe the study was completed by the city that even with parking on both sides of the street, there's adequate space to move vehicles, specifically emergency vehicles, through. It's definitely an issue that we're keeping track of. Our main focus for this expanded outdoor area is to allow our patrons to just spread out a little bit more, enjoy the summer weather that I think we're all missing a little bit right now, and hopefully make our site a little more family friendly, allowing families from the neighborhood to walk down with kids and dogs. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Motion to close the floor.
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion, it's now closed. So a motion to approve?
We did.
Yep, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. All right, thank you. Number 3, consideration of possible action on general ordinance 03-23, an ordinance repealing and rescinding chapter 4 Green Bay Municipal Code related to alcohol beverages. Attorney? Any update?
So in the packet is the current version of chapter 4. So since we met for the special meeting on the 16th, a few changes were made. That's also in the packet under track changes. Again, just a couple of changes, one on a date range and one on a time limitation for an abatement plan to be in place. So with those changes, the final draft is up for consideration and approval. And I believe that Don Meldy from the Tavern League is on if you wanted to take any comments. I'm not sure if anybody else on has any comments. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey, does Don have any comments? I can't tell if anybody's raising their hand.
If someone would like to speak in Zoom regarding general ordinance, if you'd like to unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Well, we gotta open the floor first.
Well, yeah,
It looks like Dunn did
Okay.
unmute himself.
all right, take a motion to open the floor.
Motion to open the floor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay? Ayes have it. The floor is now open.
Don Meldy, 13231 Lake Shore Road, Two Rivers. I just want to say thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be at the table for this process. I think with this new municipal code, puts the right fail-safes in place to make sure everything runs effectively and smoothly. I had a great time working with Lacey through this, and I'm willing to answer any questions you guys might have about it this time.
Okay, thank you, Don. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this item? If not, I'll take a motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it.
Motion to, repeal and recreate chapter 4.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Alder Morgan, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you for all the work.
Thank you all.
Okay, number 4, consideration possible action on appeal by Gregory and Jennifer Van Dyne Nelson, 3486 York Shore Drive regarding building inspection order 22-1588-106, case number 13-2019, issued November 4th, 2022. You want to make any comments, or?
Yeah, just appropriate for an appeal. The property owner is here, I believe.
I'd like to hear from staff.
Staff
so
as well are here to speak on it.
If there's anything from staff.
Staff?
I'm Paul, the chief building official. I brought Eric and Jason with me as well. A little background on this case, there's 3 houses basically that had permits and did things in their backyard that impacted the fourth property. And we have orders with all three that did the backyard alterations. And the force tonight is a question as to why we have orders on Jen's property. So I'll let Eric take it from there.
Sure. You guys have the sheets, pictures?
Yep, yep, that's
Okay.
all in the packet.
I can kind of just talk to each picture. I guess the before and afters on the second page show what the property looked like before and then what the property looked like afterwards. The fence is the area that was, from that portion back, was elevated up, and it creates more of a flooding issue for the complaint. And you can, I guess you can really tell in the pictures on the third page that the grade has been elevated, so what used to share water in both properties now is basically just in the one. What else here? Flooding's pretty bad, and all we've asked is to connect one downspout, and that should help out, and that's their orders, that's what they're fighting at this point.
Now, is it just their orders to put in the drain? Or is that being split up between everybody?
So each of the three properties has orders. The other two, they raise their backyard about 1.5 feet or more. So they're required to connect all their downspouts in the back of the yard and take that water out to the street instead of dumping it in their backyard. This property that we're talking about has 2 downspouts back there, but we're only asking to have them connect the one that's closest to the other downspouts, or where the sump pump discharge point is closest to there.
So it's just moving a
They'll have
downspout,
to-
it's not putting in a sewer? I thought I
No,
saw.
it's actually trenching underground and tying that downspout into the system,
okay.
storm sewer, and take it out to the street.
Can't do that above ground, it's gotta be,
No, it would have to be underground in order to get it there. Yeah.
What's the estimated cost for doing that?
Jason could speak better to that. It's gonna vary based on contractors and availability and whatnot.
We haven't tracked, prices have been so volatile of materials. It used to always be a rule of thumb was $15 a foot for trenching and installing storm sewer pipe, this type of thing. I would say double that now, just because of how crazy the material prices have gotten in the last couple of years. That's a few-year-old number. And we never solicited those prices. That was kind of, some of the contractors used to just say, when people ask, hey, if we want to do something like this, what are we looking at? I would say probably 30, probably closer to it, but I haven't secured any quotes.
So one of the big contentions with this is the perspective that no fill or nothing change in her backyard to induce the extra water going into the fourth property. But if you look at the pictures on page 4, you can see that the backyard has been elevated from the fence. It drops down 6 to 8 inches. And that backyard used to have water in it, as you can tell from the other pictures, it was low. So the water used to set between the two, and now bring in adding the pool, raising it up, and now all ends up in the fourth person's property.
Do you know if this is the everyday occurrence when it rains?
I would assume so, yeah, the water is standing after rain. I've been there after rain and walked back there and my feet sunk in the mud. And it happens until it dries out a week or two later, so I think every single rainfall would fill that area up, yeah. And I think the main thing is, like Paul said, the elevated area, this whole area pre-pool and pre-fence, it used to share that burden of extra water in that area. Now it's just basically only in one yard now, so what used to be 2 is now 1, which is elevating it even higher.
right, that's gonna be one of my questions, cause they, oh,
Well,
okay, the defendant had complained, not the complainant, the defendant, the appellant had mentioned, I'll get it right, had mentioned that the water used to be back there before anyway, before they did this. And I was wondering how much it impacted both properties. And I'm also wondering, is the property owner that the water is settling in now, are they also required to take some measures Are they not responsible for
Not-
some of that water?
Not at this time. There were no complaints prior to these 3 projects being done, and they all happened within a year and a half at the same time. So that there were no issues prior to this. Not enough that warranted a complaint coming in.
Well, the complaint came from the property owner though, or?
Fourth one, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so for him to, someone needs to complain against him then to get that in motion if they're responsible for any of that water, or?
If you look at the pre-existing conditions,
Yeah.
it's a low spot that was designed back there, but now all that is in her yard versus shared between the two. So it's different. Yeah, you could argue that they should have to do something, but they won't because of all this that's being picked up by the other 3.
Okay.
From the pictures, it looks like the person who's experiencing the issues right now, their yard is pretty graded. Looks like the water sits in the back, almost like the backyard was designed like that, so it would stop the water from going up to the house. And I know there wasn't any complaints prior, but you did say that this water issue was shared between property owners, and I know we've talked on the phone. And a point I brought up is, so if a property owner is allowed to take a certain percentage of mitigation to stop water in their backyard, you know, where, as a city, do we have the power to make only one party fix that mitigation and not the both parties? So that's where I kind of have an issue with this. I live on this road, Yorkshire as well. Our whole neighborhood has flooding issues. We are at the bottom of a hill. It's either drainage was not properly done when the neighborhood was developed, but this is nothing new. Our sump pump went out and we had water in our basement within minutes. So it is a known problem for our neighborhood, and I hate to punish a resident for taking actions to protect their property, and we're talking 6 inches. So that's why I put this on the agenda, to review.
Thank you. So in these photos, it looks like all the properties around it have increased the height of their lawns. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, the 2 on the upside, there's 2 up here, and then the one here, and then the 4th party. Yeah, these 2 raised it by, like I said, 18 inches probably, and then Jen's is 6 to 8 inches.
So it's causing this valley, per se.
Well, yeah, in the back. It used to be a common valley between the 2.
So because the 3 properties all raised the land, per se, why is she being responsible for other
The
people's
other
actions?
2 are also have orders to connect all their downspouts in their backyards.
And how are those coming along?
Today, Friday was the deadline to have permits in for all 3. None of them submitted anything. So we're waiting for tonight to see how this goes, and then tomorrow we would charge reinspection fees, which is our normal protocol for failure to comply with orders that we've issued. And if you look at the timeline, this has started in November. We've met with, we've talked to, and gone over this extensively with them, and they're just dragging their feet.
So you said you would start reinspection fees tomorrow, but you want them to bury this underground. The ground's frozen at the moment,
Correct.
so.
The orders are written such that all they had to do is pull the permit by last Friday. Get a contractor, line them up for the summer, and then pull the permit, and then do the work before, I think our orders are before June, and have it done. If they don't do that now, what'll happen is you won't get a contractor, and then we'll be in the same boat all throughout the summer until a contractor can get in there and get the work done.
And did all 3 residents pull a permit when making these improvements to their backyards?
The golf simulator one, no. We found that one, we're doing the work without a permit. The other 2 did, yes.
Okay.
Well, I do have some long-term questions, but not for the immediate, so I'll save those for later at the back end. Let's get to the meat.
Any other comments from the 3 of you? Okay. Take a motion to open the floor.
Motion to open the floor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay? Hi, if you could state your name and your address for the record, please.
Sure, Jennifer Vanden Nelson, 3486 Yorkshire Road, Green Bay, Wisconsin. All right, did you want me to just go ahead and respond to some of the points I heard, or are there specific questions for me to answer?
Sorry, you give you, and then if we have questions, we'll ask.
All right, so I'll just go ahead, I know you all saw the materials that I sent over, I'll go ahead and refer to the packet that the inspectors sent over, that they were just referencing. I did want to note a couple of items. I'm trying to figure out how to verbally number these pages so I can refer to the right one. This one, what page number is this? There's no page number, you guys all have this in front of you?
Yep.
That was referred to. I just wanna note that that tape measure showing that elevation, that's not our property. So the kinda shock value of it being really high up there, this is a neighboring property here, our property is down here. So just to clarify that point, I think would be important, because pictures are worth 1,000 words, so just to kind of clarify where that's coming from. I would say the timeline of all of this, I think, is the main point that we have had issue with. We received these orders 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. I called immediately the next morning and was told that anyone with any authority over the issue was on vacation for 2 weeks. And so I had to repeatedly ask for extensions, received no meaningful response until I had my older person become involved. So that right there was a little bit difficult, that I couldn't get any communication through to the inspectors sending the letters until I had someone else intervene for me. From there was a comment by Paul that we were dragging our feet and have asked for multiple extensions. We were told early on that we could receive as many extensions as needed, and that the city wanted to work with us on this. So I was not aware that that was a point against us, that we had asked for extensions repeatedly. That being said, I have extensive email records showing very prompt communication from us and very delayed or protracted communication from the inspector's department. So anything that's been slow or dragging about this, we've been very anxious to get the whole thing resolved. Speaking to the availability of contractors, because we received these orders 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, and then later found out that this has been an open issue for over 1.5 years, and we were not brought in until the ground was frozen and it was almost Thanksgiving. I called every contractor I could find, I won't say in the phone book, but on the internet for our geographic area. Pretty much every single one was, equipment's put away, can't even come out for an estimate, like this is the end of the season, come back later. Was able to find one contractor that came in, reviewed the property, is licensed, I'm not sure if it's licensed or certified or what it is, to be able to do this type of work with trenching and connecting into the storm sewer. He found no issue with drainage on our property. Had said, I can go ahead and give you a quote to do this work, but doing this work on your property will not help the property behind you, because there isn't an issue to solve on your property. We had a second contractor come out at the suggestion of the inspector's department. We had the contractor they suggested sent out one of their people to look at our property, said the same thing. We don't see anything that you really could do here to resolve the issue on the neighboring property to the south. So we brought those contractors out in good faith, but quite frankly, when we pulled the permit for this pool, I specifically called down to City Hall and said, what permit, we were excited about the project, what permits do we need, what boxes do we need to check, we'll make sure we do this right. My husband particularly is a very play-by-the-rules kind of person, and so we were very thorough. Never once throughout the entire permitting and inspection process, it's my understanding there was at least 3 different times that inspectors were on our property during that project. Never once did anyone say, hey, we see something wrong with the drainage, we see something wrong with the property. So for us to receive a letter in the mail 2 years later and say, the initial letter we received ordered over $20,000 worth of work. To say, no, there's something wrong with this, you need to fix this, that was a shock to us. But the reality is we paid the pool company, Poolworks, a very reputable pool company in the area, we paid them to haul away any fill from the pool. We did not redistribute that across our land to intentionally raise our land up. We then brought in subsequently 20 yards of dirt, and spread it across our entire backyard and front yard, which amounted to about 1 inch of topsoil, so that we could plant grass. And according from what I found in municipal code, a permit is required if you bring in more than 100 yards of dirt, so we were nowhere near that level. We were very careful to keep the property level at the fence line. Up until we received these orders on November 4th, I did not realize there was even an issue with the neighboring property behind us. So this was a bit of a shock to me, as I said. But we have, throughout our project, we did our best to comply by anything that we were told from the city, to follow code to the extent that we knew. When we did receive these orders, we very promptly replied We repeatedly asked for a list of codes that we had broken. We were not supplied with that. We also asked for any evidence that the city had that we had done something wrong. The pictures in this packet, today is the first time I'm seeing these. So for months I asked for, do you have any pictures? Do you have any even like theoretical numbers for how drainage works that you could explain to me how this could be our fault? And I've received no evidence other than just assertions that, well, you're a contributor to the problem. On December 6th of 2022, we submitted an open records request because the inspector's department was not willing to provide any information to us. On January 23rd or 25th, it has the date in here, we received a response, at which time a significant amount of information was withheld from us. So we reached back out to the attorney's office. They were able to perform some type of query and provide more records to us. But even then, I still had never seen any of these photos supposedly documenting the issue on our property until now. So obviously, I could talk about this for a while, but I'll take any questions that you have, from what you've heard from me or from the inspectors or in the attachments.
Thank you. Any questions?
So you're appealing this, is it that you don't want to do the work, or that you needed more time to do the work, or I'm not exactly sure from what you just told us?
Sure.
Because it sounded like you were gonna do the work, and you had some delays with staff, miscommunications or whatever, and then contractors came and said it wasn't your issue?
We at no time agreed to do the work. When we received the orders, our first question was, could you explain to us, could you come out to the property and show us what did we do wrong? What's the issue here? From the time we purchased the property in 2019, we've done nothing but improve the stormwater retention of that property. We planted 6 new healthy trees. We took down a number of diseased ash trees. We planted grass across the entire backyard, which obviously helps significantly with stormwater retention. And then also, I think you'll see in the packet that I sent you an elevation map that I pulled from the county website. Our property is the lowest and the flattest of that little quadrant of properties. So, I mean, it's just the idea that water is pouring off of our property, which is the words that were used, pouring off of our property into a neighboring property, we're failing to see how that's possible and how we could be at fault for this.
Yeah, that's my question too. If all the properties around are higher than yours, how can the water be pouring into those ones?
And specifically in the one meeting that I was able to have at the inspector's office with Paul and with Eric, the point that Paul had made was that, because I said, there's standing water in a lot of places. There's drainage, problems in a lot of places. Why this? Why are we being required to mitigate when there are so many, I would say, maybe more severe issues in the city to be dealt with? And what he had indicated to us is the reason this matters is because the homeowners that are making the complaints have alleged that their basement has flooded twice now due to these water issues, and that's the reason this needs to be mitigated. So in response to that, we said, show us any proof or documentation that the basement has been flooded and that we're the cause of it. And I think I noted in the packet as well, we had a geotechnical engineer review the situation. The idea that we could push water up the hill into their basement is just not physically possible.
So you stated communication with inspectors and emails and the slow response from the city. Do you have a time frame on what the response was from the city? Since when you send an email out, how soon does it come back to you?
I don't want to misspeak. I think sometimes there were shorter timelines and sometimes longer, but between 1 to 2 weeks.
That long?
And I will say there was, most notably, there was, I think you saw in the packet as well that I provided, that I received an email saying that they believed we had illegally buried pipe in our backyard that was conveying water to the neighboring yard, and they wanted to come out and dig for that pipe and see if we did that. And they came out and dug around and found there was no illegally buried pipe. And after that, I had said, okay, where do we go from here now that there's no pipe that's found? And I waited weeks for a response on that. So, I mean, there was even times that I would call, and then after I would call, I would immediately get an email. So it's like, okay, you're at your desk, by your phone. So it's been hard. I'm happy to talk with or meet with anyone at any time. I offered to come down to City Hall. It's been it's been a huge lack of transparency and good faith communication.
Any other questions?
Yeah, before you did this work, water was shared between both yards?
I think it's fair to say that all of the backyards on that whole block have water in them.
Okay, so
I would say we still have soft spots where we get some water, but none of it is near the property line. It's all kind of further in, and it would be not terribly nothing that I could see that it could somehow jump up and go over. I will say, in the downspout they're requesting that we connect in is 40 feet from the property line.
Okay, but I mean, before you did the work, did this water go onto your property as well?
We had some water, yes.
Yeah. Okay, a lot or?
The point was made that no complaints were ever made about the other property.
Right.
When we moved in, it was immediately apparent that the house making these complaints is built up quite a bit. If you drive down the street, you can see it's built up, slanted greatly towards their backyard. Their own water is being pushed to the backyard, and because we're the low property in the area, a lot of it was getting pushed onto ours too. We never complained because it's water, and what are you gonna do? But we were very, very cognizant of not intentionally raising our property when we did our project, because we didn't wanna create problems. So that's where the planting the grass, planting trees, our pool specifically, the pool deck is actually slanted towards our house, so that water would not be pushed that way.
You didn't have any problems with flooding in your basement, water in your basement or anything?
Funny enough, we did,
Oh.
but because of our sump pump, which I would strongly suspect would be the issue with the neighboring property as well. Our properties were built around the same time. I think we had the original sump pump in still, and we had that huge rainstorm in 21, I think it was June, and our sump pump went along with many people's on the block. Never occurred to us to try and allege that someone else's property caused that flood, though. Any other questions I could answer?
None? Any other questions? If not, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor.
Do I have a second? On the grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, nay, ayes have it. Discussion?
Well,
Yeah,
I'd like to get staff's opinion now,
Yeah.
if they've had engineers come out and say it's not coming from their property, is that proof that we would take into account, or how do we handle that?
I'm not sure what they made that assessment on. It's evident by the pictures that the ground is higher now
High.
at the fence line.
Mhm.
So what they were looking at, that I cannot speak to. I know what we've seen and saw in the field, and I still stand behind where we're at today with all three properties.
But could raising it just sort of protect their property from the runoff to?
Correct. So Jen keeps saying that they didn't raise it or do anything.
Well, it's raised.
But they did.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know how I can refute that.
Right.
I can't. I don't have a pre-existing topo of their backyard and to go out there and shoot a topo today, but the pictures show what it shows. Phil was brought in when we had that meeting in the city hall. She even said that parts of the backyard, there were big low spots where the water used to sit. That's not there anymore, because it's all filled in and all nice and level. So where'd that water go? Into the fourth property.
So it wouldn't be a matter of, since the complainant has water going, they're high, going low, it wouldn't be a matter of her property going up to protect themselves.
Well, you see, we're getting into a world of what the city has going on all over. In Jen's own words, she said this is all over the city.
Right.
She's right.
Yeah.
And the problem is that people will, I'm low, raise it.
Right.
And then guess what? I'm low, I'll raise it. And then they keep raising and they get these issues all over. One of the things that we have changed since this and on new home constructions is requiring a grading plan with real elevations to be submitted with the project. I can tell you all three of these did not have a grading plan with real elevations that we could have verified and should have, right? But going forward, new homes, infill lots, places like this where they're filling a corner 2 feet or bringing in a pool and raising it 6 inches, that we have to know about. So we can make sure that we're not inducing a problem by issuing the permit.
Right, and that's gonna be one of my concerns going forward here is, because they did get permits and everything, and yet somehow they ended up with this. How can we issue permits and make sure, because they're probably thinking they did everything right, so how do we get that?
You're right, that's the grading plans now that are gonna be required. 99% of all the permits that we issue, it's usually in a flat backyard where they're putting a shed right on grade, it's not an issue. But when it's this, where they filled in the corners so they had more usable space, not so much in Jen's, but the whole yard was filled, but the other two literally brought in that 18 inches and flattened out their back corner, and then dumped the water right from their property right onto the fourth property. We'll get that going forward with having grading plans, real grading plans that
Okay,
address that
that's,
issue.
that's, okay, good. Then, if the 3 properties, we want them to do, that should help with this, but that's not gonna solve it as long as this property, I mean,
It's
they're
go-
still flooding themselves, right? So,
Correct. And if it still floods with what they're doing, then we would have to write an order on them to clean up, connect their downspouts on the back.
sorry,
That's okay.
mommy, God, override committee. So then, because, even if someone doesn't file a complaint against them, because this process is going,
Correct.
would-
We could go back and check and see if it's been resolved or not resolved, and then order them to.
okay, cause I suspect it won't be, I suspect they're flooding themselves as well.
Maybe,
And this,
maybe, because it's a big yard, and her downspouts dump out 20 feet up the hill. So yes, it's gonna percolate and end up getting down there, but then her trees and her yard might absorb most of that water versus her yard picking up the other 3 yards,
okay. So it could actually,
yes.
okay, all right. You've answered all my questions.
We're hearing that it's impossible to get someone to come out and do the work now. And you said, I believe, to get the permits, they have to have a contractor come and get them and
Right.
see what he's doing. Is there any other option to be done as a temporary solution, an above-ground hose or something that, to alleviate them not getting fines until they can find somebody?
You can get bids from contractors and line up the work now to do it in the summer, and that's what we're asking them to do. The orders were just find a contractor, show us that, a contractor is putting together an estimate, and then pull the permit, and then do the work before June.
I am sorry, Attorney Kocher, I was.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, do you have a question for me?
Well, I don't know if this is a law department question or staff, but I guess the questionable part I have is, like I said, the ones who are experiencing the flooding, there is a very obvious grading going down into the middle of the backyard, which is where the flooding is occurring. At what point does this become a civil matter where the city says, you know what, everybody is trying to mitigate the water, but everybody needs to mitigate the water, and this is no longer on city hands, everybody's doing what they can do. I guess, is this truly where the city should be putting ourselves into these situations with, when there is a known problem there? There was a known problem there, just the complaint wasn't filed.
So, one of the things that's important, I think I'm loud.
Oh,
But,
okay.
one of the things that's important to note is that the conveyance of groundwater, which is something that I've discussed with inspectors, is permitted. It's just the point at which it causes a nuisance. So the issue here, which I think the inspections department is responding to, is the nuisance, which is the complaint from the property owner. And then the part where multiple property owners are receiving orders, and if the contention is not the homeowner, it's based on the professional judgment of our inspections team and the properties that are contributing to the nuisance. So the questions are really if it's a nuisance and then the property's contributing to the nuisance. And then obviously if more technical work was needed to rule out one property or another, that could be something we would contemplate. But at this point, the city is required to respond to a complaint, and then we have a violation of our ordinance because the groundwater is causing a nuisance. It's just, I think what's at issue is where which properties are creating the nuisance. So technically, it is absolutely a city issue. Certainly the landowners could take action against their neighbors if they wanted, a different result or had their own personal damages. But it is appropriate for the city to be involved because we do have a violation of our ordinance.
Okay, so if the backyards where they meet were always low, you have the owner of the lowest property, say 6 inches was added. How are we to say that is, I thought I read in one of the ordinances that there is a percentage that you can raise it to mitigate. I mean, we're talking about the lowest property and we're talking about 6 inches. So at what point are we saying they mitigated water on their property, now it's the complainant's part to do proper mitigation on their property?
They're not the lowest. They may have been the lowest.
Right.
They're no longer the lowest. And the code doesn't allow you to fill your yard so that there's no more water on your yard and put it all on your neighbors. Doesn't do that. You still have to address the water in your yard, i.e. through catch basins, et cetera, like we're doing with all 3 of those.
But she's still getting water in her yard as well, so it's not
She's getting
completely,
water in her yard from her own downspout.
Mhm.
Yes, they all are, yes.
right, so if the property is completely slanted.
Oh, no, wait, no, you're talking.
Nope, sorry, the owner that filed the complaint, her property is completely slanted away from her house, therefore the water is collecting there, isn't that by design?
It was by design, you could argue, right? It was by design, but it was shared between the 2 and probably even the 4 properties. The 2 other properties have raised it that 18 inches, there's nothing going uphill. So now the water is all coming to the 4th property instead of being shared amongst all 4 properties, if that makes sense?
It does, again, I guess my question is, if water was always there, this responsibility should be shared by all property
But I
owners.
guess what I'm asking you is, are you saying the 4th one right now should raise her property up so it's the same height as Jen's property, so the water's back on both properties? Is that what
Is
you
anything
want?
happening with her downspouts?
It doesn't have to, because the other 3 have forced their water onto hers. So if the other 3 that are now dumping their water onto hers address their issue, and there's no longer an issue with the 4th property, there's no reason for them to address their downspouts. Unless there's still an issue when we're all done, then we can go back and write an order saying, connect at least one of your downspouts or both your downspouts on the back of the yard, so that water too doesn't get back into creating a problem back there, a nuisance.
Okay, I guess I could understand that if water wasn't an issue prior, but it was, so I don't know what we're trying to fix when not all parties are,
I don't know how to
Playing into
explain it any different. What we're trying to fix is the fact that 3 of them raised their property and put it all on the 4th. That's the crux of this whole discussion. And if that's what we gotta agree on, otherwise, I don't know what we're really discussing and trying to figure out.
okay.
Any other questions?
No other questions? No?
You? All right, thank you. Discussion among ourselves?
Well, I think, I had some questions coming in, thinking that maybe, as, although Grant was talking about that maybe, everybody needs to take some responsibility here, but, perhaps not. And if so, that will happen. If the property owner who's the complainant, this water is still an issue, staff will then say, well, we've taken care of the other 3 that were bringing some water onto your property, this is still an issue, now, here's the football, congratulations, it's all yours. I think we have to start with the 3. That's the logical point to start with, from staff's perspective, correct?
Yes.
So, I support rejecting the appeal, and, if staff could just give to the end of the week for them to get their act together, to, get those, before we start finding, daily. But it would be important to talk to staff and make sure, because that's what we want, is communication to, and I know we've had that in the past, communication, people have complained. Is there something we can do as alders to help you streamline that, or do you need more? Do you need a secretary, or how can we expedite communications? This isn't the first time. That's another issue.
Yeah.
We can talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the three property owners obviously have raised their properties, and it's staff's assessment that that's adding to the problem, if not creating the problem. So even if this complainant property did something, there would still probably be a problem from the other three properties. So it seems to me we should start with the other three properties, because they are the ones who did the raising.
I think a point to note that the pool was put in 2020. The first complaint wasn't until 2021 when the other two property owners made their changes. So if the other two property owners hadn't put the shed and the golf simulator in, do we know if they would have ever experienced flooding with the change of the 1 yard? Because there wasn't a complaint with the one update. And if she got an opinion that what staff is recommending won't make a difference, why would we have a resident pay thousands of, we're talking, I believe, I apologize, the floor is closed now. The quote was $2,000. This isn't $200, $2,000. It's for a maybe. So that's where I hesitate. Again, she did the pool in 2020.
Well, I would think that if she gets an engineer to do the work, and that engineer is saying it's not necessary, I should hope that engineer, when he comes to permit, could talk to staff, you could talk that out, and you could understand what he's talking about and correct him or agree with him, and
Yeah, I
things
would-
could be changed accordingly. Wish to speak again? We could open the floor. Okay.
I have a question.
Yep, just, yeah.
So we're talking about three properties here. Any communication with the other two properties regarding?
Yes, we were on site with one build the golf simulator, so I refer to that one as the golf simulator. We were on site and found the issues with his. Jason actually found the discharge point buried underground and going right onto the fourth property, and he's got orders on that one. Actually, they capped it, but they still gotta fix and connect their downspouts. The other one, we've actually had a meeting with them too. So yes, we've talked to them, they came into the office and they're supposed to be working on it, but they haven't submitted paperwork yet. And then Gen 2, we met in the office. So we've spoken with all three property owners. And
So
the
if those two,
complaint to all
sure.
four.
So if those two properties fix their issues, do you think this might resolve it?
If
Water?
they just did theirs, not totally. I mean, cause the water's not being shared anymore between the last two, Jen's and the complainant. It's all on the complainants.
And what communication have we had with the complainant lately?
I haven't recently, Eric was up.
I've been there and I just filled them in on what we're going through, and they're distraught over their backyard. They have expensive plantings in their backyards and they can't get them to grow. Their trees are dying that are soaked in water. You can tell in the pictures they have a nice backyard. I would say that as far as communication between them, I've kind of kept them out of the loop while we deal with the complaint and deal with the neighbors. And in my opinion, that backyard is there's a levee now built, and that complainant, the last time I talked to them, they said the only communication they had with Jen was Jen said, well, we don't want the water. And that was the standpoint that I take, and I look at it, and what I see is definitely that backyard is elevated, keeping all the water in their yard, and I feel they have every right to be upset at what they're dealing with.
Okay, thank you.
I think that the property owner, if we decide to open the floor again, I think that the other property owner might be on, in Zoom it looks like. I think that might be Janelle, but I'm not sure, and I don't know if she wishes to speak. I've just noted that on my Zoom list.
Make a motion to open the floor.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Nate, ayes have it. Oh, you,
I just, do you need me to state my name and address?
no.
Okay, just checking. Still just me together. So I just wanted to respond to a couple of points that I don't know were entirely accurate. So the idea that a contractor could come out and give us a quote now, the contractors that we've spoken to have said they'll come out in the spring, that they won't come out now. So the idea that we could have a contractor on board by the end of this week is not realistic. Additionally, the contractor that was specifically recommended by name by the inspector's office, after we spoke with them, he said that he would follow up with Paul personally to better understand the issue so he could better. He called Paul 5 times across the course of 2 weeks with 0 response. So the contractor finally called me back and said, I'm sorry, I can't get a response. I don't know what to tell you. So again, we tried there. Just a point of reference, I would say, the pool we put in our backyard actually acts as a retention pond. I mean, it might sound like I'm making light by saying that, but the reality is that it does. So when we improved our backyard, because our backyard is flat, when we improved it, those improvements essentially helped us to mitigate our own stormwater on our property. So it's still our assertion that the water is not going from our property to theirs. We're dealing with our water on our property, which is what the original drainage plan for that part of the subdivision indicates is our responsibility, to deal with our own water on our own property, which we've done with the grass and the trees and the essentially retention pond. And then I will say, every single phone call and email that I had and meeting with any of the inspectors, I documented thoroughly. And I have on 2 separate occasions, Eric specifically saying that 90% or more of the problem is in fact the other 2 properties that made those improvements. I have dates and timestamps to him saying those exact words. On our most recent phone call, the exact words were literally, "You're right, Jen, you are not the major contributor." So, this is difficult for me to say that we'll go ahead and pay $2,000 to mitigate something on our property that, again, there's no proof that we've caused that damage on the other property. So I just wanted to respond specifically to those points.
Questions?
Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom?
It looks like Janelle has unmuted herself.
Yeah, go
Yes, we have.
Do I step away or do I?
If you would like to state your name and address, please, and then you can speak on this item.
Yeah, Stephen and Janelle Merrick, 3485 Edinburgh Road.
Thank you. You can speak.
To speak, first of all, we don't have anything against the pool. That's fine as far as that goes. But the fact of the matter is that the water does run off their property onto our property when it rains. You can go out in our backyard and actually see it running.
But it has to be when it rains.
When it's a downpour. The water's, we're the water mitigation plan now for that block. It all settles in our yard. When it storms like that, we can't go in the backyard for 2-3 days. They're cutting their yards the next day. So that tells me it can't be real wet.
Yeah, we'll have 6 to 8 inches of water or more after a heavy rain because our utility box for the neighborhood is in our backyard and it goes, a third of the way up the utility box, and that was a concern of ours. And, like my husband said, we can't fully enjoy our backyard the way our neighbors can, because that water on a really heavy rainfall, it comes halfway up our backyard. And we've mulched it and everything, and that's just all disappeared. We never raised our backyard. We're not the original property owners here. When we came into this house, the backyard, the lawn was in and everything was graded. And we did some landscaping about 6 or 8 years ago. And the landscaper at that time, they decided, we're not going to raise your property because we want to be even with everybody else. And I had sent Eric pictures of what our backyards used to look like, where everybody was on kind of the same level playing field. And we never, if it rained, we didn't have standing water for days. We might have had a little bit of water, because everybody did if it was a heavy rain, but that usually dried up very quickly. Now we have, a lot of rain. I'll go out there sometimes when it's raining and it's above my boots. There's so much rain, so much water accumulating, and it accumulates really quickly. But then it takes days to dry up. and go away. And I can see it running, you know, off of the property behind us. As soon as it starts to rain, it starts to, you know, come down the side of the edge of their property because they are just that much higher than us now. So it's really, our big concern is we can't enjoy our backyard. We want to do some improvements to our backyard and plant some additional trees, but we've had several landscaping places here and they said they can't do that with the amount of water we get because anything we plant will die. And, you know, we're seeing that happen to some of our trees.
Yeah, and it's also gonna devalue our property if we wanted to sell it. Because we have to disclose what happens in our backyard now. I couldn't sell that properly, honestly, by not telling them that when you get a good rain, half your yard in the backyard is gonna be flooded.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, any additional comments?
No,
Okay, thank you for your time. Anybody
Thank
else?
thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I'll take a motion to close the floor. Oh, oh.
No, only if, I mean, I would just be repeating myself unless there are additional questions. I will say we're not denying that there's water in our backyard. There's always been water. I'm not saying there's not water there, so just to clarify, I'm not saying those pictures aren't real.
Motion to close the floor.
Right, do I have a second?
Second.
Alder Grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, nays, ayes have it.
Well, how about you slice a little bit?
Oh, I had a question.
Oh,
Well, make your comment, maybe you'll answer it.
well, I was gonna say, if we could hold this while you get a hold of the contractor, do you have that name? Instead of them trying to get a hold of you, maybe you can get a hold of them, you recommended. Okay, and see what's said and how that goes, and if you come to the determination that it needs to happen, well, then she's got her contractor. So, that should get her okay, but with the others, you should proceed. So hold the, appeal right now, and you can come back to us as, either it's got resolved, or we still need to take some action as a council. But if the contractor, you talk to the contractor and you decide on what you decide, and that's fine with you, otherwise, we will convene again if you still wanna appeal this, and you'll be able to present your case then.
We would need an extension until April because the contractor, like most others, are not like up and running
Right.
again until end of April.
All staff wants is that you have a contractor. So, if you've contacted one, he's trying to get a hold of you, you haven't, if you could get a hold of them, and then see what happens, and if we need to, once she knows what you've been decided, if she wants to keep up the appeal, we can convene again. If not, maybe this just all goes away. So, I just make a motion to hold.
Hold until the second meeting in March?
Hold until our next meeting. Is that the next meeting?
No, the next meeting's at the 13th, I believe, and the meeting after that would be the 27th of March.
I think just till our next meeting, because you should be able to get a hold of the contractor. Things should be,
If I can speak, I did speak to one of the contractors, I don't know if it's the one that Jen was using, I'm gonna guess it's Champion. I talked to him, he's down in Florida, but I mean, that's where he's on vacation, I don't know if he's coming back. So, I didn't get I don't know about the 5 calls, unless the guy called and didn't leave a message.
but so you did contact, and was, what
He
came?
didn't give a price, cause he's in Florida, he has one of his buddies that probably went out to Jen's and did that, or works with him.
Okay, but there was no conversation about
No.
their
but it
opinion
wouldn't
that
work.
there was no need for the
I'll
work?
have to follow up and call him again. and
Okay.
Talk to him.
Okay, and then however you resolve that, that decision can be made, passed on to Jen, she can decide to, what she wants to do, go on with the appeal or whatever, and we'll meet again.
Well, a question for you. Would 2 weeks be efficient? Because you still have to deal with the other 2 properties.
Well,
I-
the other two properties aren't in the appeal.
I know that, but they have he was talking about talking to the other two. At the same time.
At the same time.
He said he was gonna reach out,
Oh,
deal with them and deal with the other two.
Oh, no,
For
the
communication.
other two, they already know their rules, Jason's got orders on them, and they should be complying already.
right.
Yeah.
Could I interrupt, please?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Chairman. I've communicated with a gentleman, a Joe Tyrell, that is a contractor, some sort of utility contractor. I do have an email from him on the 15th saying that he's been working with the homeowners at 3490 and 3486 Yorkshire and 3495 Edinburgh to install drainage pipes connecting all their downspouts to the lateral, because those are my orders for all three of those houses to connect. He said he's been working with them and looking on deadlines. He asked me about lateral path to the house, and I communicated with him. I don't know, I guess I'm a little confused. I do know that Kevin from Champion Trenching winters in Arizona, so he had left earlier in the year, which he always does, and Steve Koss, who works with him, came out and looked, and I don't think he understood exactly what was being asked of the Van den Elsens, but this Mr. Tyrell, we've had communications with him, and he's a licensed utility contractor, so he told me he was preparing things, so I guess I'm a little confused, I don't know.
Does he need to come back out? Well, if he said he's not clear on the issue with Van den Elsens,
We
does he
had
need to come back out?
We had spoke after, he just asked me if I knew the path of the storm sewer going to her house, and I don't wanna lose my place, and
Oh, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're giving you enough time. If he needs to go back out to the house and reevaluate, knowing
this,
what we're looking for.
the Van den Elsen is a correction that's being requested, is a very simple one. The others are much more extensive, especially the House of the Golf Simulator. That one's fairly extensive, but this gentleman told me he's working with all three of them, so maybe he's mistaken, I don't know, but he told me, by email, he told me he's working with all three. Times.
Have you made a motion?
Yeah, well, I think I'm gonna stick with the motion to hold till our next meeting. If you could get ahold of some of the contractors, and specifically, if there's anybody telling, Jen that, you know, any work they do is gonna be neutral, it's not gonna solve anything or do anything, I mean, that's ridiculous, then, to do the work. And if they're wrong, you need to, you know, we should be able to come to some consensus on that, one way or the other. And then it's up to Jen to follow after that, and with the other two, they're not appealing, and so whatever you need to do. We're just holding this until our next meeting.
That's a motion, I second it.
Just wanna clarify, 2 weeks is enough time,
2 weeks is enough time to call and get an idea.
get everything situated.
Is 2 weeks enough time for the resident for any second opinions that she would like to seek? I think it's fair that she has anyone licensed check it out and speak to them directly.
I would agree with that.
Well, if I may, if in 2 weeks it turns out people need more time, we can always kick it again down the road. I mean, I don't wanna kick it out too far, I'd rather keep on top of this, and then we can always extend it if we need to next meeting.
I just don't want to waste the residents' time and staff's time coming to these if we're not prepared. Looks like the resident has a question. Can I make or there's a motion on the floor, so do I need to, can I motion to open the floor again?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't made a vote.
Oh, sorry. Alder Morgan seconded. So motion open to the floor.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So Kevin from Champion Trenching, he had said to me that he will not be back till the end of April, so he would not be out to assess our property to provide his expert opinion until then. So, yes, I wanna expedite the matter, but if realistically, we're just gonna kick it every 2 weeks until he is back in town to be able to assess the property,
But was he the one who told you?
I had quotes from 2 people. I have not spoken to Joe from Greenway since our initial communications with him. When we met with Paul, he had suggested Kevin from Champion Trenching, so we went ahead with getting a quote from him as well.
And it was Kevin that came out and said it wouldn't make,
Both came out.
and both said?
Kevin did not come out. He was in Arizona. He sent out his colleague employee up Yes.
Okay, well, and that's who said?
And then Joe is the other contractor, so two different companies,
Right.
both contractors came out, both kind of laughed and said this doesn't make sense.
Okay,
So
so,
if we're waiting for Kevin from Champion Trenching to weigh in, he's not.
well, whoever, I mean, Kevin would know whoever he sent out. We know whoever's, that's who we'll contact, that's who we'll talk to.
Okay. So then in 2 weeks I come back?
If you want, depending upon what the conversations are, what they decide, and what you wanna do with that.
Okay.
So we're just holding this appeal, we're not denying it, we're not granting it. So they'll talk, they'll get things worked out, they'll let you know what the decisions are, and then it's up to you to decide what you wanna do.
Okay. And then just to be clear, so technically we were supposed to have complied with this by February 24th, which is come and gone. Do we have some type of extension until
Yes,
this
this
is
is all-
discussed?
Yeah.
Or,
Mhm.
okay, and do we get documentation? Is it another 30-day extension, or what is that?
It's not technically an extension if they hold it, it's just, the enforcement of the order is suspended until it's resolved, until the appeal is resolved,
Okay, so we're in a holding pattern where we're not gonna be fined.
if that's what they approve.
Okay.
Actually, if what council approves on the 7th.
Okay,
Not daily, just hourly.
sounds about right. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Motion to close the floor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it.
So we have the motion, and I'm good with it.
Want to repeat that motion?
Motion to hold until our next meeting.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Is there limitations on, I had a resident was in the same problem, I went to DPW instead of inspections. Is there a set of can he still file a complaint against his other? We'll talk.
All right, we'll move on. Number 5, consideration of possible action for staff to provide a plan to bring stakeholders together on a process to move forward on the recommendations outlined in the Equal Rights Commission Housing Report. Mr. Falls.
I'm gonna defer, I don't know if it's the mic, I don't know if they can hear me.
Oh, you got it.
I'm gonna defer to our Deputy Director, Cheryl Vernier Wade. She'll start us off and I'll add anything we need to.
All right, thank you, Deputy.
Deputy. So I think when Joe and I talked about how we wanted to handle this, we looked at it like when we got our housing study. So we got our housing market study, right, which came with all kinds of recommendations. So staff had a chance to review those and decide which ones will work, which ones won't. We formed a little subcommittee and we reported back to the RDA, because that was the committee. I think we'd work this the same way. We've already met with the Brown County Home Builders Multifamily Association. They had a few concerns, but nothing we couldn't work through, and they were very willing to work with us. I've also spoken with the president of the Apartment Association, and we've had communications with other members who are willing to sit down and talk to us. I think there's only a few things that really they don't like with regards to what the recommendations were. I think a lot of what I heard from landlords was that they just weren't happy with how it was done, the process, and they didn't have enough input. We'd like to give them the opportunity to give us more input. So at this point, if we could maybe just get it referred to staff so we could set up a little subcommittee and make some recommendations. We've done, I guess, just so you know, a number of these things the city's already been working on as part of the housing study. So we've already been able to accomplish some of these things. We're right now working with the Fair Housing Council. We have a contract with them through our block grant funding. So we're already working with them. We'll continue to work with them. And there's another subcommittee through the Brown County Housing Authority that we've been working on landlord training and tenant training. So we're already working on some of these things, so.
I'll just jump in with that. So when we talk to the landlords and the Brown County home builders, there's very positive feedback on tenant and landlord training. And if you look at the recommendations, those are the immediate recommendations, so there's not a lot of pushback on those. There was more discussions and concerns about the intermediate and long-term recommendations, which we need more time anyway. So far, we've had a lot of people reach out to the mayor's office, to Community Economic Development, to Alder Hutchison, who's on the Equal Rights Commission, who really want to be involved in this. So there's a lot of people that are interested, and we just need time to get their feedback and have a plan moving forward.
So we got a good foundation?
Great foundation.
Yes.
I make a motion to refer to staff.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, I have a comment too. So. Go for it.
How many people are you planning to have on this board? Do you have an idea in your head at all, or a goal?
No.
We've had about 4 or 5 people reach out to us just from the public. I spoke with Cinnamon Harley from the Apartment Association who expressed an interest. I think someone from the Home Builders, multifamily potentially as well. So I think we'll have enough people to draw from, but as far as the committee, we don't want it to be too big, I suppose. I don't.
Yeah, I think we're also thinking of, do we need a committee? I mean, there's the Business Friendliness Task Force that the mayor and the Green Bay Chamber set up, who, we meet on a regular basis to talk about these issues. The landlords were just open and willing to help out. I think what might happen too is with some of the recommendations, you might have a focus group on just one particular recommendation. So that's where we're trying to figure out where are the pain points and where we have to focus on. That might take 6 months to a year to figure out. That might only be 1 or 2 recommendations. So that's why we don't have a plan at this point.
Okay, and do you have kind of, again, a goal or an idea of, I know you had a couple of people reach out to you, but is there anyone you would like to seek with a certain profession or background, like anything with banking? Because when applying for loans, those things matter and play into that. So I just want to make sure we have a really well-rounded group of people. I guess I didn't know, if there was anybody you were seeking, or that way if anybody's listening to this and is interested, they know to reach out.
Yeah, they can reach out to my department, Community and Economic Development, anyone on the Equal Rights Commission, I guess even the county council they could reach out to. But we're open. That's why we just want to be referred so we can think more about who could be a part of the discussion. But that's a good point.
Any needs, though, that you have that you were hoping to have on this board, I guess?
Not that we can, do you have any?
Well, I mean, we certainly want to have some landlord representation. I think it'd be good for us to talk to the groups that were mentioned in the ERC that were having issues with landlords, some of those nonprofit groups potentially. We All Rise, I think there was some other groups that were mentioned that it might be good to have representatives sit at the table as well. But that's, I think, our first initial thoughts for that. I don't know about lenders so much, and this is more of a rental situation with regards, so, I mean, I'm not sure if we would need a lender, but certainly open if someone's interested and they have an interest with regards to the tenant situation and lenders, that might be helpful.
And I think the landlord brought up a good point when you're developing, and if we have an amount that we're requiring to be affordable housing, that is something that a developer is going to want to know before they dive into a project financially and make sure they're able to do it. So maybe that's something to consider.
If anyone out there wants to develop affordable housing, call me today. We already have some tools in place to assist people that want to develop affordable housing, so that we've had in place for a while.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
So my comment to you is I would love to help you. I've been a landlord in the city of Green Bay for 23 years now, so I'm pretty passionate about it. So I'm a book of knowledge. So if you need help, I'm here for you.
We know where to find it.
Yes, please, 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 please.
What I like is that landlord, you don't lord over it.
Landlord, I'm getting used to that name because it's always property management. So.
Yeah, right.
And everybody's throwing around landlord, and I'm not too keen on that word. So. But anyway, I'm here for you. So.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, any other questions? If not, let's refer to staff.
Made the motion.
All right, do I have a second? By Morgan, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Thank you for the work. Mine, Mike?
All these.
Mine too.
Hold on.
Just kidding. I like it.
Okay, we're on to informational liquor violation report.
I have nothing for you today.
Perfect, thank you.
My goodness, Officer Mahoney, you look.
All right, receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second. Alder Grant, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Clerk's office licensing report, please.
There were no changes from last report, and the city of Green Bay still has no available liquor licenses at this time.
Perfect, thank you. Motion?
Motion to receive and place on file.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Alder Morgan.
Sorry.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, on to number 3, opioid litigation summary, please.
So this was a communication from Alder Weary, and his question was just about status. So I provided a memo, which is from the law department to you all. It's in the packet. That's just for the committee. If you all want to review that, have any questions, obviously they can be answered at council. The summary here about the city's participation is that our participation in the litigation ended in 2021, which was shortly after a state law was passed that created a retroactive statute of limitations for filing matters. Again, this information is all in the memo I provided, and so if there are additional new questions, I know Alder Weary had some points and comments, happy to take those up at council as well. A couple of the items that are happening, if there's some interest of council, obviously the state through the Department of Health has, large chunks of money each year, settlement funds. They're soliciting input on what I assume will be an annual basis, maybe even more than annually for information or suggestions as to how to spend the money, interest from communities. The same with Brown County. They just announced their action plan for some funds for this year as well. I think they're hiring at least 3 deputies for their drug task force assignment. So anyway, that's how the state and county are using their funds. Those are opportunities for us to participate if council wants to. Again, I'm not sure if Alder Weary had an idea for that, but if council has an interest in communicating with the county or the state, I'm happy to help with that process. But that's basically where we're at with the settlement, is that funds are being distributed at the state level, the county level. And again, the city's participation in any litigation ended in 21, which was a council action not to take further, not to pursue any further litigation. But obviously that was a complicated process getting there, but that's documented in the memo. But I can take any questions you all have, or again, we can, we can take questions at council. And if there might be a need for closed session too, we can add that at council. I didn't contemplate that because I didn't communicate with Alder Weary about the last iteration of the memo.
Any questions?
Would it be appropriate to receive a place on file, or?
I think that would be appropriate. It is just identified as informational.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? All right. On to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Alder Grant, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. All right, we're now adjourned.